Hello again, it's me. Do you know unreasonable people? Do you have an unreasonable person in your life? You know, people who you try so hard with, but oh my God, it's always about them. Everything's always about them. And they will defend themselves at the drop of a hat, and their issues are always more important, and they can't cope with this and they can't deal with that. These people are an absolute nuisance and a drain. If you're in a relationship or a friendship with somebody whose constant ongoing dramas, are taking over, but worse, the person is absolutely just not willing to see their own contribution, what can you do? Well, you can get out of it. You can get out of it. If you think about it, all the problems on this planet, apart from natural disasters, but anything that is a man-made problem comes down to unreasonable behaviour. It doesn't matter whether it's dressed up as religion or war or business, but one person or a group of people's unreasonable attitude and behaviour leads to so much pain. Now, all of us can be unreasonable sometimes, that's true. I've been unreasonable myself. But really, hopefully, as we're growing older, not old, but as we're growing older, we are more able to analyse ourselves and to take responsibility for our own behaviour. But a lot of human beings don't do this. They don't. And you'll know people who don't do it. They have no self-awareness. Now, does anybody have complete and utter 100% self-awareness? Probably not. But, people who have very little or no self-awareness, they're very, very difficult to communicate with. They're very difficult to develop a healthy relationship with. And they're very difficult to make any sense of anything with. Psychiatrists would say, well, it's a psychological disorder. And it probably is, but people are milling around in everyday life, appearing like normal everyday people, but when you get really close to them, you will find that they've got so many tricks up their sleeve. So nothing will ever be their fault. It will always be your fault. They will deflect attention. They're always victims of life or of people or of circumstance. They will defend their stance to the hilt and go into retreat or switch off if you're trying to reach them. And they will blame. So one of the classic signs of a person with very little self-awareness and an unreasonable attitude is blame. They are chief blamers. And you can find yourself, as I say, you can have a boss who's like that, or colleagues, you can have parents that are like that, you can have a partner that's like that, you can have friends that are like that. And what do? Well, okay, first of all, we double check our own behaviour and we take responsibility for us, okay? It hurts when we have to acknowledge that we've messed up, that our behaviour was less than fantastic, okay? And we're going to do that. But the trick is to very, very quickly own up to it in our own mind and say, look, I was in not a good place at that time and I behaved badly, or I reacted or responded badly. I'm going to own it. I'm not going to hide away from it. I'm going to hold my hands up and I'm going to do whatever I can do to put right whatever I can put right and move on. But if you find yourself in a position constantly where you're up against a person who in the end you feel immobilized, in the end you feel powerless, and the pressure is on you, it's on your head, on your shoulders, in your heart, and then you start to feel bad about yourself. You start to think, what can I do? You start to feel that maybe you are partly to blame or wholly to blame, and it is a form of abuse. It is consistent, unreasonable behaviour is a form of mental and emotional abuse, okay? So if you find yourself in a relationship with a person who is constantly or periodically playing these games, behaving badly, and then refusing to accept personal responsibility for their behaviour and then turning it round onto you, You know, it's a very slippery slope downwards. If you have a parent who's constantly putting you on a guilt trip, and you know that you're doing your best, but they're constantly putting you on a guilt trip, as much as you might love them because you're their parent, they're your parent, it's still unreasonable behaviour, and you have to find a way of protecting yourself from it. You have to double check that you're not just being a victim and you're not just feeling sorry for yourself, okay? Because that is possible. What I'm talking about is being stuck with a person who is generally, ultra defensive, ultra unreasonable in their responses, in their attitude, and generally very uncompromising. These people can tie you up in knots, okay? But you can see them as a challenge and you can learn and grow from them, but you know where your boundaries are, okay? You have to set your own boundaries in place. So, first of all, you double check that you're not contributing overly to any situation with an unreasonable person. And once you know you've checked it out and you think, well, okay, I'm responsible for this bit or that bit, but largely speaking, I think I've been fair and reasonable, then you're okay. If you're still running into conflict with the same people again and again and again, and the same patterns are being replayed out, and they're using the same defences and they're repeating the same actions again and again, you've got to ask yourself, in the bigger picture, where is it going to take you? Okay, we can learn from every experience we have in life, I promise you, every experience. And you can actually strengthen, in a way, through relationships with unreasonable people. But in the end, they can drag you so far down you will not be able to see the wood for the trees. And so you will need to start to analyse where it's taking you and what you need to do about it. And if you need to remove yourself from it, even though it will be painful, even though it will be tricky, and even though you may well go away still with a sense of blame hanging over your head, it's important that you save yourself. All sounds very dramatic, but daily in my work, I come across unreasonable behaviour. In my personal life, I come across unreasonable behaviour. When you turn on the news, you see unreasonable behaviour. If you look at all the soaps that people so love, they're really all about other people's unreasonable behaviour. If you read the reality magazines, true life stories, they're always about other people's unreasonable behaviour. And it's a form of insanity, and you can get sucked into it. So if you know for sure that you're doing your best and that you're being reasonable and fair, you keep your feet on the ground, you hold your head up, okay? And you don't let yourself get dragged in. And it doesn't matter whether that person is your parent, your partner, your best friend, your boss, some way or another, somehow or another, you've got to set your boundaries and not take responsibility for it, okay? Okay. Good luck. Take care. Bye.